At first appeared a dim half-neutral tide of being emerging out of infinite naught. A consciousness looked at the inconscient vast, and pleasure and pain stirred in the insensible void.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So we know that this is the search for the soul, the parable of the search for the soul. Interesting that Sri Aurobindo calls it a parable, because in the ancient ages, everything was taught in parables. And
Parables are like folklore tales.
yeah, stories, tales, exactly right. And so this is the parable of the search for the soul. It's Savitri's search for her own soul. She has just lost such one, we know that. And we see that in her consciousness, there seems to be a dim, half neutral tide of being emerging out of infinite naught. It's a consciousness, and that consciousness has looked at the inconscient vast. And what has it done in looking at it? Well, it has seen that pleasure and pain stirred in the insensible void. It doesn't stir in the highest realms. In fact, if we get into the next realm above body, life, and mind, there is no feeling of pleasure and pain mixed. Everything joins in a unified whole. And when we get to the highest, to the supramental, which has created this world, then we see that pleasure and pain are the same thing. And they're just slightly different aspects of the same thing. Incredible. So carry on.
All was the deed of a blind world energy. Unconscious of her own exploits, she worked, shaping a universe out of the inane.
Well, this is this world energy, and it's the world energy which the divine has thrown out of himself to play a game of experiencing himself in billions of souls in different aspects. So beautiful. So it's a blind world energy. Uh, at the moment, we see it as that. He hyphenates the world and capitalizes both words. Very interesting. And this world energy is, of course, unconscious of her own acts or deeds, exploits. She's working. But she is, at the same moment, shaping a universe out of the inane, the emptiness, the void. So now what's going to happen? She's going to see some things, okay? She's going to grow aware of some things.
In fragmentary beings, she grew aware. A chaos of little sensibilities gathered round a small ego's pinpoint head. In it, a sentient creature found its poise. It moved and lived a breathing, thinking whole.
Well, this is basically humanity that he's talking about here. I mean, he's telling us first of all that that she's becoming aware of these broken, disconnected parts, these fragmentary beings, because we're not whole. Now, our body is not conscious of our vital, not conscious of our mind, not conscious of our psychic being as yet, or at least united with him. So it's a kind of chaos of little sensibilities.
Hmm.
It's, it's a disorderly mess that we are. And not only that, that mass is gathered round a small ego's pinpoint head. So humorous. And in it, in that experience, in that ascension creature, a creature having the power of sense perception, a somewhat conscious creature, found its poise. It moved and lived, a breathing, thinking whole. So we're seeing that this first entry into life from this vastness. Now, it doesn't have to be humanity, it could be animal kingdom, could be flowers, could be earlier. But if it's a breathing, thinking whole, then it has to be man, because the animals don't have the process of thought as yet. There's some coming in the apes. We see it very often in the apes. Sometimes in dogs, we can see it. So, but now if it's a living and breathing and thinking whole, it's humanity. So
What about the process of decision making? If a dog is making a decision between two or three things, is that the power of thinking, or is that developing? Is that what it indicates?
maybe on a very, very low level. Usually it's more instinctual. It has a
Okay.
feeling, it has a feeling about this or a sense about this. But I don't think it's a thought process as
Okay.
yet.
There's an interesting dog I've seen online, and she's able to do very simple math. Her
Yeah.
owner tells her 2 plus 2, and then she'll tap him 4 times.
And
Right.
then there are the orangutans who are even
Yeah.
more advanced. Yeah.
Yes. They're
So
beautiful.
it is happening. It's happening because the evolution is accelerating.
Hmm.
That's the only reason Mother and Sri Aurobindo came down. I
Yes.
mean, Krishna brought the overmind consciousness to the earth,
Hmm.
but it hadn't gone past that. The overmind consciousness is quite high. It's just below the supramental.
Hmm.
But it's only Mother and Sri Aurobindo had to come to bring down the supermind. So we'll carry on.
On a dim ocean of subconscious life, a formless surface consciousness awoke. A stream of thoughts and feelings came and went. A foam of memories hardened and became a bright crust of habitual sense and thought, a seat of living personality, and recurrent habits mimicked permanence.
Yeah, so we're seeing that as the human being is progressing, uh, there are memories that are hardened. There are memories in the early man. He remembers how he killed an animal with a club, and it's a persistent memory, and he can survive because he has food. And there are other memories, of course, of ours. We have so many painful memories and beautiful memories also, but they become hardened and they become a crust of habitual sense and thought. But they also are a seat of living personality. And these recurrent habits, he calls them recurrent habits, these memories of the past, they mimicked permanence. So there really is no permanence. if a beloved one dies, we can remember them beautifully, but it's a recurrent habit more than an actual physical, palpable memory of that person. In fact, people say, I can't see his face anymore. I can't see her face anymore. I can't, I can almost hear her voice, but not quite anymore. See? So that's why he calls it a mimicked permanence. It's an imitated permanence, a simulated permanence. So now we're getting into mind.
Mind nascent labored out a mutable
Nascent.
nascent. Mind nascent labored out a mutable form. It built a mobile house on shifting sands, a floating isle upon a bottomless sea.
Well, mind is nascent, it's coming into existence, it's emerging, and it is laboring out a mutable form, a form that is subject to change, to alteration. And it built a mobile house, a changing house that's movable, capable of moving. But that mobile house is on shifting sands, and it's a floating isle upon a bottomless sea. So we don't see too much permanence here as yet, but now he's going to tell us more.
A conscious being was by this labor made. It looked around it on its difficult field in the green, wonderful, and perilous earth. It hoped in a brief body to survive, relying on matter's false eternity.
You're reading very well today, very well.
Thank
I
you.
really want to consider you for this Savitri work. I'm getting more and more people starting to ask me now, so it takes time, it's slow. And people are so engaged in their own things. In the ashram, they're too busy with their departments and everything.
Mm.
In Oroville, everything is chaos. And although she's left, huh?
Who has?
Secretary, she's gone.
Okay.
She got a promotion in Gujarat, so
Okay.
she'll be paid more, and maybe things will change for the better. We'll have to hope. So let's go back to this. A conscious being was by all this labor made. I mean, where mind that's coming into existence labors out this mutable, this changeable form, and builds this mobile house, this body, on shifting sands, as if on shifting sands, changeable sands. And it becomes sort of like a floating isle upon a bottomless sea because we can't see the depths of anything yet. We're not there yet. But a conscious being was by this labor made. And there's a semicolon there because he wanted to tell us these beautiful things. First of all, it looked around it on its difficult field. Yeah, it's a difficult field. I mean, imagine for the early beings, their only reason for life was to survive, just like the animals and the birds.
Mm.
Survival is the key. I now have a crow for the first time who took something out of my finger. I've been doing it for weeks. I've been putting the food out there, and he would come a little closer and a little closer, and he's a youngster. But the moment he sees me, he flies up and he's ready for his food. So we've become friends. In the green, wonderful, but then he says, and perilous earth, because there's semicolon there, because it hoped in a brief body to survive. And in those days, we can even say hundreds of years ago, average lifespan might have been 40, 35 years.
Yes.
Relying on matter's false eternity. Because matter is not in charge of anything yet, because it's the basis of ignorance,
Hmm.
but it's being changed. Okay, so let's carry on a little more
It
and then you can read. Yeah.
it felt a godhead in its fragile house. It saw blue heavens, dreamed immortality.
Oh, that's so important, isn't it? Now, because now man is beginning to become a little conscious, and it
Hmm.
feels in its fragile house this Godhead.
Hmm.
Wow. It saw blue heavens. Heavens, of course, are not blue at all, but it saw blue heavens and it dreamed immortality. And we go a little bit more.
A conscious soul in the inconscious world, hidden behind our thoughts and hopes and dreams, an indifferent master signing nature's acts, leaves the. Would you help me with that, please? But
Vicegerent.
vicegerent leaves the vicegerent mind a seeming king.
So the vicegerent seems to be invested with or characterized by authority.
Okay.
And that's the mind, isn't it? It
Yes.
still thinks it's the king of this being.
Mm.
So so we just go back a little bit and then you have to read everything because it's such a wonderful thing. So it's a conscious soul. It becomes a conscious soul, somewhat conscious in the inconscious world, because this world is still inconscient. And Sri Aurobindo, in his letters on yoga, says the inconscient is the last resort of the ignorance. The last resort of the ignorance.
Mm.
And then he says, hidden behind our thoughts and hopes and dreams, an indifferent master. An indifferent master, the master is the one, the divine, signing nature's acts. Yes, he's not disapproving of them. He's signing them. He's giving his signature. But what we feel is that our vicegerent mind is a seeming king. We have to get over that. But there's so many beautiful things to come. So why don't you begin reading? It's 5:53. So got to go to 477.
Yes. Should I just start from a dream disclosed to her? It's from
Yes,
the previous, but
yes,
it's only
good.
a dream disclosed to her the cosmic past, the crypt seed and the mystic origins, the shadowy beginnings of world fate, a lamp of symbol lighting hidden truth, imaged to her the world's significance. In the indeterminate formlessness of self, creation took its first mysterious steps. It made the body's shape a house of soul, and matter learned to think, and person grew. She saw space peopled with the seeds of life, and saw the human creature born in time. At first appeared a dim half neutral tide of being emerging out of infinite naught, A consciousness looked at the inconscient vast, and pleasure and pain stirred in the insensible void. All was the deed of a blind world energy. Unconscious of her own exploits, she worked, shaping a universe out of the inane. In fragmentary beings, she grew aware. A chaos of little sensibilities gathered round a small ego's pinpoint head. In it, a sentient creature found its poise. It moved and lived a breathing, thinking whole. On a dim ocean of subconscient life, a formless surface consciousness awoke. A stream of thoughts and feelings came and went. A foam of memories hardened and became a bright crust of habitual sense and thought, a seat of living personality, and recurrent habits mimicked permanence. Mind nascent labored out a mutable form. It built a mobile house on shifting sands, a floating isle upon a bottomless sea. A conscious being was by this labor made. It looked around it on its difficult field, in the green, wonderful, and perilous earth. It hoped in a brief body to survive, relying on matter's false eternity. It felt a godhead in its fragile house. It saw blue heavens, dreamed immortality, a conscious soul in the inconscious world, hidden behind our thoughts and hopes and dreams, an indifferent master signing nature's acts, leaves the vicegerent mind a seeming king.
I think I would prefer indifferent.
Indifferent.
Indi-
Indifferent.
in, yes, indifferent.
I said indifferent. Okay. Indifferent.
I think that's better. An
Yes.
indifferent master signing nature's acts.
An
But your
indifferent.
reading has improved so tremendously.
Thank
I'm
you.
feeling it, and this is really a great progress. Really.
Thank you. Thank you for helping me.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
See you
I'll,
next week.
I'll see you next week. Thank you. Be well. Namaste.